I hope, I don't know if we say, yeah, I don't know. We'll wait a bit, a few minutes for people to show up. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, there's one person there. Hi, everybody, whoever is there. Welcome to our live channel. Chat topic would be transition to adulthood. So we wait for a couple of minutes for people to join us before we start. Uh, we're just gonna wait, right?
Yeah, we'll just wait a few minutes for the so-called stragglers.
Okay. Thank you, whoever joined us. We're just gonna wait about 2-3 minutes before we start. Our topic for today is our children when they transition to adulthood, what preparation we need, and how we get prepared for that important time in their life. And we share this from our experience. It's not like we're a doctor or a therapist, but we are sharing our own experience, what we're
Yeah, we
yeah.
haven't written a book. There's no definitive guide to parenting.
Yeah.
And then with the added challenges of having a so-called special needs
Yeah.
child as well. So, like I've been told over my years as an educator at any workshop or whatever, if you can get one point or tip, we hope that you walk away with something from this workshop.
Yeah. So, like I said, we wait a couple of minutes for people to join us, and then we'll start in about maybe 2-3 minutes.
Well, it is maybe 3 minutes, so that
Right.
would be five minutes after
Right.
Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah. So if you joined us, or if you're anybody online, if you can let us know you're on the chat, you can hear us. Or if there is any difficulty listening, please let us know.
And again, we.
Yeah, Barakat has joined us.
Oh,
Thank you, Barakat. Can you hear us? Please write. Let us know if you can hear us.
Amasaganalo, bata mamasaganalo. Ato beriket.
Yep. If you can hear us, just. So we wait 1 or 2 minutes to join to start, and to see how people to give it people an opportunity to join us, and so.
Well, yeah, and first and foremost, we would like to apologize to any parent that came 2 weeks ago, I guess, and
Yeah,
that
we
was-
had technical difficulty that day. Well, we'd clarify that now.
So we thank you for your time and patience and sticking with us
Right.
on our journey on this YouTube channel.
Okay, I think we should just start.
Well, I mean,
So we're just gonna give 1 minute, and then we'll go ahead and start our session today. And then we start.
loud and clear. Great.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, America.
Okay, so that gives us at least another minute.
Right.
It's wonderful. The cliche is what is it? It takes a village to raise a child, and we are becoming a village, right? And we're hoping that through our village together that we can help one another move forward with our children.
So I think we should start. I think we can go ahead and start with this important topic. I really do believe it's very, very important how we prepare ourselves and our children to transition to adulthood. It's not, I think this is a lost, many, even the therapists or doctors, it's very, what I'm saying is there's not a lot of work into putting to the helping kids to transition successfully, our kids to success to adulthood, right? So most of the therapy focuses on when they're younger, and even when Stevie was younger, I don't remember they any therapist talked to us about work on transition to adulthood, early. Like I don't remember.
No, well, not during the formative years. I think what it is, and
Yeah.
you can understand from their vantage point, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
We talked about that at our last show. Parents blame themselves. Family, they mean well, but what did you do? Mothers will think, oh, when I fell down, Yolem did this, right? She fell down during a yoga class. Maybe that's when Stevie got
Yeah.
autism. So the point I'm raising here is they don't want to jump that much ahead. But
Right. Right.
we know, and we mentioned this before, 2 decades, 20 years goes like that, right? So here we are. You have a young adolescent. What support systems are in
Can
place?
you go over the topic that we're going to cover today? Like what are we gonna cover, and then we'll
Sure.
discuss it. Yeah, please.
Okay. So Yelem is going to be talking about building the strengths, and I think she's talked about just now is building the strengths of your child at an early age. The earlier, the better, right? Then I'm going to talk about the initiating the transition process, planning process. Who is part of it? What is it? Where do you go? How is it? That. And then we're going to be talking about further education. Once the child has finished, or young adult has finished high school, where to go from there. And yeah, so really it's three main topics that we will be talking about.
Yeah. I guess uh, building your child's strength. So it's where start. I mean, it really has to start early. Personally, like when the child is. Think about this child is going to turn 16 at some point, right? We usually focus on teach when they're younger, but we're not. I personally believe that you need to prepare your children for transition very, very young age. What does that mean? What does it look like? When I say that, that's very general. So, but you have to be specific in terms of the three categories really. Teaching them social skills to be independent, um, in the workforce when you have to teach the social skill, the broad I guess skills. What I'm talking about is like engaging with the society, having a conversation, interacting with people, going out grocery shopping. What is it like being, taking care of their own finances? You start, of course, like three times. This is the social aspect of it, but I think also you have to really start teaching them life skill or self-help skills at the very, very, very early. Independent. That's the word I really want to use. It's really independent because our kids, it will take them to master a skill. So you have to teach that skill early. Like you probably already start teaching like toileting or even that for some kids will take 6 months to a year, right? Uh,
Yeah, and the whole toileting. I mean, our physician, our Stevie's doctor had said, let him soil his his drawers, right, and then he will feel the discomfort, right, because the term is helicopter parent. So try your best not to be and a helicopter parent is a parent that is almost sliding down that pole every time and assisting their child and not letting them problem solve, and you have to give them the opportunity to solve their own problems.
Yeah, go through a list of skills that you need to teach. You can't teach all of it at once. What I'm saying is make a list, right? And then go, which one is the most important to teach at that moment? That, right? Like I think we were talking about this before. Do you want to teach making bed at the age 4, or do you want to really focus on teaching toileting? Yeah. So you prioritized the skill you need to teach, and it has to be age appropriate. go through these are very, very important skills for your child to transit to adulthood eventually, right? Self-confidence, that's something, that a skill that you need to teach, because our kids, they do lack that. They're hesitated to do something because their confidence is always low compared to a typical child, right? So
Well, and I'm going to be. I don't want to jump ahead, but I will be talking about the transition processing team or planning team, and so where I'm getting at with this is communicating with the teachers, your child's teachers at a young age, right? Because they want, or what you want, and it's helpful to them at school when they're teaching the child, is that you guys are working cohesively in tandem, right? Tie his shoes. And then it was Yalem, her discussion, and you were supporting what the teacher was doing,
all right,
right?
so that comes in, don't panic, because if your child didn't master at a certain age, but make sure to repeat the skills, and don't move into a different to teach a different skills if you didn't master one skill, because yet what I'm trying to say, don't you want to overwhelm your child. So you're working on hand washing, make sure he mastered the hand washing first before you go to the next um, steps. In terms of like teaching the skills, make sure you divide them in steps. Like I guess we'll talk about ABA another time, but this is a ABA step. ABA is steps. What the way the ABA is categorized, breaking down the skill into smaller pieces. What I'm saying is, through picture, you have to do it. Like if you think about it, like washing hand has so many steps, right? So you need to let's say if you're working on your child with just opening the faucet, right? Just work on that, and don't basically the rest of the steps. You guide your child. You hand over hand.
Yeah, and don't be embarrassed. I mean, we have family members and friends of so-called mainstream kids, their offsprings, and I mean, Stevie's 20 years of age, but yet we have all the steps. It's on the of how to shower, and it's been there since he was 10, so it's been there for about 10 years. And another, and I know it's not easy, is to compare your child to their sibling, right? And the other is to other children as well. Because if you fall into that trap, well, and if you vocalize that to them and putting pressure, this was what Yalem's saying. Don't put pressure. I mean, you know.
Yeah, so in terms of coming transition again, this is a skill that you're going to teach when the child is younger, right? Make sure, because as they get older, it's difficult. Of course, but like I said, try to teach these skills ahead of time. Which one is prioritize? I don't know if you heard me, some of you, but you have to prioritize. Prioritize. What is it?
Prioritize.
Prioritize the skills you want to teach. So write it down. All of the skills that you want to teach, prioritize, though I can't say that word, but make sure which one is important, which comes first,
But yeah, and
right?
know the child. Like, how does your child? I mean, when I get my students in, I have to know how they learn. Is your child visual?
Learning
Is he
style, yeah.
auditory? Yeah, and most children now with social media are visual, very visual. With all the social media, what's been bombarded with TalkTik or TikTok and Instagram and all the rest of that. So the picture exchange communication, PEC is the acronym, where they have the steps and it's pictures in that.
Visualize, yeah.
The visualization of it is really important. You can mention this to your child's teacher first and then, and have that. If you go into a lot of ISP classes, special programs for students with autism, and that you will see that right on the desk, and they're not all the same, hence the spectrum.
Right. So again, this is all lead to transition. You prioritize the skill that you want to teach first, and your goal is for your child to be independent. So um, it might take some one skill that you're teaching might take 5 months. So I wouldn't give up, right? maybe that your child is not ready to be, don't force it. That's what I'm trying to say. So you work on it, breaking down the skill into smaller pieces, and work on a goal to basically, okay, just a good example is like tying shoes. It has a lot of steps. So you hold the two string, right? And you maybe that's what you're gonna teach, right? Until that child master holding it. Don't move to the next step, right? Until your child is master holding it, right? But gradually you break it. Well, like I said, we'll go over this another time. But right now, we need to focus on helping them to be a better independent adult by teaching them the necessary skill that they need in order to function an adult, right? So you want to make sure that at the age of 16, you want to make sure your child is toilet trained, right? Because there are some kids who are not toilet trained, right? At that age, our kids. So you want to make sure that they can actually wash their hand properly. You want to make sure they can dress properly, independently. But you, like I said, you really have to prioritize, write down the skill that you need to teach ahead of time and cross them out. Use reinforcement, picture clues, whatever you need to gradually help them achieve that goal. But it start at home, especially in Ethiopia. Here, the school will also have, Derek will talk about the IEP or the goals that the school will set up with you to work to help you go to that, to achieve that goal. But at home, well, at home you have to do it yourself, right? And through social, I mean, there's a lot of resources.
But washing their hands and brushing their teeth, that needs to be echoed. And I know Stevie does that on a daily basis at school after
But
his
how long
lunch.
it took? It took a while.
It took a while, but
Yeah.
how are they teaching it, right? And you don't want your child to get confused. But the other thing is celebrate the successes.
Celebrate the successes. Every reinforcement. I cannot stress enough how much you need to use reinforcement. Like not everything. Like I said, I'm not ABA expert, but I did a lot of ABA with Stevie. But what I noticed is reinforcement does work. Positive reinforcement, right?
Right.
What is it that you wanted to achieve, right? Using positive reinforcement, right? And celebrate the successes of your child. Let's say that your child is a master holding that string. Celebrate that, right?
Right.
Celebrate with stickers, high five, gobes, ba Marinha. So you do everything, right? I will try to put this in a Marinha another time, but the goal is start at home, build that strength. So in order also, the other thing I want to talk about, and then I'll give it to Derek, is really understand your child. How is he learning, right? Is he auditory by listening? The learning style is very, very important. So some kids are very, very handy. They like to learn things by doing things by themselves, right? Are they visual learners, right? Do they understand picture? Most of our kids, they understand. If it's better you show them than telling them with so many words. If you do use words, make it simple. So building that independent strengths, teaching them goals, it's very important for them to achieve uh, their long-term goals. So my the way I will tell you a story that I read somewhere. A mother who was she had a nonverbal. I actually saw the interview she did. Um, her son was nonverbal for 15 years, nonverbal. So he wasn't. She tried every therapy, everything, nothing works. So one day somebody told her, have you tried art therapy? She never knew about art therapy before, but she actually tried that art therapy. She didn't even know her own child strengths. That he's like a master artist. Like his art is like unbelievable. That he in his mind he can. So really understand. The point is like understand and find, study, really your children, right? Like what is their strengths and build on it. That helps them in terms of uh, building a long-term goal, right? So the point is now is understanding their learning style, teaching them skills that they need, even though it looks small, teaching them the life skill, washing, bathing, uh, changing their clothes. I'm telling you from my own experience, brushing teeth takes time for some kids. It took a long time for Stevie to master brushing teeth, right? Don't just give up. And you have to, like I said, use visual, whatever you have to do to teach them that skill. And in the long run, before you know, that child will be 16. I'm not trying to panic you. Trust me, these are the most important skills that you that helps you to be independent. You want him to go and change his own clothes at the age 15, 16, washroom, washing his hand, and other things will come next. But I think the next thing you want to talk about is go ahead.
Yeah, what's the transition planning process, everyone? And in the United States and Canada and other parts of the world, it's called an IEP, is the acronym. It's the Individual Education Plan.
Which I don't have in Ethiopia, so
Yeah, but I mean, something like that can be created.
can be created definitely.
Can be created.
Yeah.
We can send you a blank template of it.
Yeah.
It looks well for
do.
confidentiality. I have one here, and I apologize for leaving, but I just didn't want to leave anything out. First and foremost, the team consists of parents, the student, very important that your child is part of it, it's his or her future, and school personnel. The school personnel in the development of the IEP is a social worker, if social work is involved, the psychoeducational consultant, big term, but basically it's a psychologist.
Yeah.
Right? So if there is
Parents involved, right?
Parent and guardian, correct, right? If you know that your child has an IEP or something similar and you're not involved, please be involved, right?
Yeah, very important.
Any of the paperwork, right?
Yeah.
If you're not seeing any of your child, if your child is not bringing home reports or anything like that, there are red flags there. Please contact your child's school.
And ask really, especially like in Ethiopia, right? There's that lack of communication. Although they say they have special need teachers and Steve, as like I experienced that when I was in Ethiopia. They really question them. What is actually you cover? Like, what are you doing during the day? Like, what is that my child is learning? Right? You're paying a lot. I'm sure most in Ethiopia you pay a lot of money to, especially with the special need kids. So it's you have to advocate and ask these kind of things. Does my child have a goal set? Like
Right.
this is what it is, individualized plan, and what is it that you're covering? What are you teaching? Yeah.
Well, and that's it. And I mean, if there is something similar developed for your child, the first and main question is, what is the rationale? Why, like, is my child underachieving in literacy,
Yeah.
numeracy? Is there, is it a big thing, transitions or whatever? So clearly on the IEP, it is it's called the educational rationale. So the why. Why are we creating this individual education plan? The next thing is assessment data, right? So I know here in Canada and the United States, I mean, as early as 30 days into the school year, we're having to run numeracy and literacy assessments. At what grade level is your child at? Now, students under the spectrum, developmentally delayed, or in an ISP class, an autism class, their assessments will look different in that as well.
Can I, from the parent point of view, in terms of the educational plan, right? You have to advocate for your child. Basically, what I'm saying is, let me talk to you. For example, Stevie's educational plan, right? I'd read it, and then if I don't see that there are some goals they didn't set up for him and that IEP, I'll contact the teacher.
Yeah.
And then I would say, you know what? I don't see you guys covering.
Yeah, so you're jumping like, and what Yalem is talking about
Yeah.
is, and it's called a, I picked a long one here that, is a log of communication log, right? Is how often has the educator, the
Yeah, you
teacher.
can do this in others. Let's say they basically like you can say, you know what, this is the area of need for my child, right? So what are you actually working on with him at school, right? I want this thing done. So here in Canada, the teachers usually we are a team, right? So we'll they will set up a meeting and say like, I don't see Stevie, for example. It's just an example. He's not washing his head, and I will say that he's not doing that at home either. We're struggling. So can you put that in his IEP, educational plan?
Right.
We really need to work on that. That's a goal. Okay. Sometimes they don't know what he can do, and these kids sometimes they don't really communicate. What I'm saying, they don't show what they know. It depends on, like, I think what I was talking about last time is generalization. They can do a skill at home, and they cannot do a skill somewhere else, right? Okay,
Yeah.
continue.
Okay. So it's a log. It's a IE. So basically, it's the date and it's the activity. So the date in terms of a consultation letter or a communication from the teacher to the parent about, when we're going to talk. When is the IEP? When is the paperwork going home? And what is the outcome of the consultation? Like, what happened at the meeting?
Yeah.
What's the next step? So there is definitely a plan. We've talked about right at the beginning of looking at a profile of the strengths and growth. And really, it should be cohesive between the teacher and, so what he or she sees at school is not always seen at home, but and if not, why? Find out why, and lean on one another, because ultimately there's no finger pointing. Oh, it's let's help the child out.
Yeah, so example to give you, like, I don't mind sharing this. For example, Stevie's IEP or his educational plan and his latest one, they were working on in terms of him having a proper dialogue or a two-way conversation, right? The reason is because he have a tendency, his way of communication is asking question, not listening and responding to questions. So we were talking about it in the meeting, and oh yeah, that's something that we need to work on, right? He's still not mastered that. There are some skill will come up and say, oh, you didn't master at home this one too. So my whole point is, again, I'll bring it back to Ethiopia. We can definitely implement this in Ethiopia. You have like you're a parent that pays a lot of money, even if it's not a lot of money, your child going to school, you have to advocate and question whether they're actually doing it at school, right? What is that you're teaching? That basically, this is my child. He's not washing his hand. I want to work on that goal, right? Or I want my child to learn to brush his teeth, or cutting with his, with knife or fork or whatever, or eating properly, sitting down. Some kids have difficulty with that. We're working on sitting, eating food on a table, right?
Okay. And so with the transition planning process, getting back to the IEP, it's looking at what is the best instruction for your child? Is it, and specifically for specific classes or courses in that, because some may excel in math and maybe need accommodation.
Yeah.
Some may need modification, right? So accommodation, some examples are extra time for processing,
Yes. Yeah.
rewording or rephrasing of the information. A modification is when you're actually changing the content of what you're giving, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. We want our children to be the most successful. I think in my years as especially a counselor, looking at grade 8 to 9 transition, students moving into high school, we all want the best for our child or children. But I remember one principal saying and one counselor saying to the parent, okay, they go into high school as a child, 13 or 14, right? Grade 8 to 9. They leave as an adult, 17 or 18, 19, Stevie's 20, 21, right? Under the spectrum. So you're not sitting in their seat. You're not, so really you're looking through a clear lens. Being open-minded is very important, right?
I think it's also transition to adulthood. Our children, a bit different to a typical teenager. That's the fact. Our transition, our kids on the spectrum, their transition is really what is it that what is they can do independently, right? Can they take bus independently? Can they, change their clothes independently? Can they eat independently? This is part of
Yeah.
transition, like what they can do at the age 16.
Yeah, and I mean, to be quite honest, like as an educator, I'm there speaking to parents and that, but just what you see and hear, we can't surmise. There's no conjecture, maybe, because this is it's a document. It's a living and breathing document that it can be changed. That's the beauty of it. It can be tweaked, and it is tweaked. It should be tweaked twice at least in Ontario.
Definitely, if anybody requested that, we have a blank document for any that a parent like Barakat, if you can, implement this in Addis in Ethiopia, it can be done. You just have to translate this in Amarina,
Right.
like
So there's
yeah,
instructional accommodations,
yeah.
right? There's also environmental accommodations, and that could be proximity to the teacher, to the instructor. Request a quiet seating area, right? I mean, if there is an educational assistant or an aide in the class, and now class sizes, look to see, and this is part of knowing and visiting the classroom setting, in that know what the teacher student ratio is and how suitable it is for your child, right?
Mm.
Because your child could work well in a small group, but if your child needs one to one at this present time, right? We don't know. Working in a small group, that's a step to move towards. Working in the large group, that's a step to work towards. But I see far too many parents, and it's not finger pointing on my part, is that they're rushing, right? And it's small steps, and we celebrate the steps, but you could start off with one to one, then you move to small group, then you move to the large group setting.
Yeah, some kids like what I like about the system here in Canada, they basically assign, what is it, the board, the school board meets the parents, and they find out, make sure that that child, uh, what I'm trying to say is assigned to a smaller, whether it depends on his learning style, what fits, right? They make sure that they they find a place for that child that can he's able to work, right?
Accommodate their needs.
Accommodate their needs, right? Just because the child is on the spectrum, they don't put them all together. That's what I find. Like when I was in, I just want to share that experience. I went to, I'm not going to name, but I went to one center in Addis, right? And I just visited that center. Just because the children is on the spectrum. Why it's called a spectrum? Because they have different abilities and strengths. That's why it's called the spectrum. Just because the child is on the spectrum, that doesn't mean they all have to be together. What I noticed is they're all together, right? And some of them cannot function in that setting, and others can function, but there's no that like
Well, and then, I mean, knowing and meeting, okay, you're a parent of a special needs child and you're going to a school, and they'll say, the administration says to you, okay, we will take your child only if and it should be them and you interviewing an aide, an assistant to come in. Okay, so now you've got this assistant and this aide, right? There is something where it's called in-class support or withdrawal support, right?
Yes.
And there is many assistants who feel that they continually have to be within the classroom to be teaching. No, you don't. And again, if it is too loud, too crowded, and it is best for the student to be withdrawn, taking them to the library or taking them to another room down the hall, a quiet area. You can listen, or even if you don't listen, we have emails now, and that this is what I'm instructing. I'm the teacher, Yelem is the aide.
Oh,
I email her, this is what I'm going to do with student Mary. And then Yelem will take it, and we will meet, Yelem and I, and then she will. The setting is very, very important.
but how can we implement this in Ethiopia,
It's
right?
called
That
environmental
and
accommodation.
accommodation. But how can we implement this? Basically, you, the parents, I'm sorry to say that, but here the government also advocate for these kids to some extent, right? But in Ethiopia, you have to be the advocate, especially if if you're paying a lot of money and you're sending these kids to a special needs school, you have the right to ask what they're covering, right? You know, but the question.
Well, the transition process, I mean, it's both at home and at the school, but in terms of the
That's why the
paperwork,
IEP comes in.
right,
Yeah.
right, right. And the paperwork is generated by the teacher. But what happens with this plan, Barakat, is that there is at least, and I'm only talking from Ontario, it's an individualized school team. So it starts off with the administration, the teacher. Like if the teacher has concerns, right? So your child, Stevie, the teacher saying, wow, Stevie or Baraket's child is always holding on to his or her ears. I notice there's something going on. So what they will develop is, and again, we can share a template of this,
Yeah.
is a learning profile, right? There's a
Yes.
lot of, yeah. So it's really, what are the concerns? So then we meet for what's called an IST, individual student team meeting, right? And if the principal, if that team, the in-school team feels that social work, we want to get feedback from social work, or or psychologist or an outside support person, then it's brought to a school support team meeting. It's called an SST meeting in that. But I think what would be very beneficial, and this can be translated into any language really, is to have a very user-friendly template that parents can use or know about or suggest in Ethiopia, that they're or the teacher might have something comparable. I mean, here I don't want to assume that
No, yeah, but
that it's
in
only
terms of
Western.
what he asked as well, what preparation for the transition course should exactly be have? Yeah, okay, a very good question. So because we're going through right now transition process at the age of the transition start at the age of 16, right here. So what you usually the process here is usually the school will know the child is 16. The government will know the. There is this organization called Ontario Disability Benefit or Ontario Disability Organization. They will know when okay, Stevie turned 16. He is transitioning to adult. Immediately they will try to engage with a parent. Okay, there's paperwork.
Yeah, but is he talking about into the workforce or
No, when
into?
the child transition from
Yeah, well, but
adulthood, basically. So basically, what is the process? How does it work? Is it parent or it's like yeah, it's a team, right? Basically, the school, the government organization, or the advocacy group, and and the parents,
yeah,
right? You start looking at what kind of benefit he gets. So I'm talking about from here in Canada, but of course, but you can actually start doing that yourself here in Ethiopia. So you look at what kind of financial support the child needs. Well, whether you're going to start banking here, and they have government support. Since we don't have that in Ethiopia, you start your own financial support, right? Um, Also look at all the skills that the child need in order to be transition, that he is not prepared maybe he doesn't know how to do certain things, right? Like maybe changing clothes or whatever, and you really have to work on that time, and they will work with you to help you transition is part of it. What else they
Well,
do?
yeah, and again, getting back into that paper document as well, there is that transition to every next grade or every next class. There's that transition, right? There's transition into high school. There's transition into
But
post-secondary
in
or
our
secondary
kids,
secondary school and
kids,
post-secondary.
what the focus is like really transition to adulthood, right?
Right.
Transition adulthood means is like I said, here they go through the finances. Did the child have bank account? Does the child have know what to do and all these things? And they work with you, right? So how can we help? We have like for example a coordinator assigned to Stevie right now because he's turning 21 and he's leaving the school next year, so they want to make sure what he's going to do next year. So the transition team will meet in a meeting, and we just met the other day, and she's working with us. Okay, so guys, what can we help you Stevie transition to adulthood?
Yeah.
So we said we need this, we need finance. Did you have, there is a checklist. Do you guys have a bank account? Check. Do you have Henson to, well, trust? What is it? Do you have a will? Do you have all these things? That's very important. And you have to go through checklist to make sure. I think I maybe send it to you guys. Whoever asks, there is like a check mark that you go through. What is going he's going to do after he finish,
Right.
and really work on his strengths. So did you guys talk about
Yeah.
like what Stevie wants to
Well,
do?
there's okay. There's further education. So, like some students in the mainstream, they take what's called a gap year, right? But we're talking specifically. It may be a gap year for a child under the spectrum, if nothing is opening up. So, the gap year is they're not in school. Or they're in school and they're waiting to get into a paid employment, right?
Program.
Yeah, a program and in a program, but
That's what you're
yeah,
asking.
in a program. But I mean that here in Ontario, but in Ethiopia, and that early, the sooner the better. And they only take a certain number of students, right? Knowing that student to teacher ratio. Um, so there's further education where, and again, sitting with your child and knowing his or her, what are their
I
interests?
think it's that's one thing we didn't hit the strengths. So let me give you an example. Our own child, right, Stevie. He have very low fine motor. His fine motor struggle with fine motor. So does he? There are some jobs he cannot do to be like writing or opening. Like he struggle with that, right? It's very like his fine motor is very low. But what we did focus on his strengths. What can he do? He likes to sing. He likes to. He's very comfortable in camera. He likes to
Talk,
talk. We created. That's why we created this YouTube.
his
We look
memory.
his memory. How can we use this strength to help him transition into the adulthood? So you do the same
Yeah.
thing for your child, right? Let's say Barakat's son. I mean, just sorry, I'm
Yes.
using a Barakat, but maybe he's musically gifted. Nurture that at the early
Yeah,
age.
well,
Early age,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and don't. I
Yeah.
mean, this is old school where doctor, lawyer, nothing wrong with those
No, no, we're
esteemed
focusing on our kids. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with those esteemed positions,
Yeah.
but what I'm getting at is Stevie's former teacher said, "You, me, we don't know the name of the actual job, but there is something out there for Baraket's
You
son
created a
for
job.
yeah
Yeah.
for creating because
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, digital host. What is that? But when you ask Stevie now, what's your job? I'm a digital host, or now I'm a co-host in that. We had no idea, but we wouldn't have known that idea if we
Like that parent who created. He have a factory that was making socks, and his child is a special need, Down syndrome, but when he turned adulthood, he basically thought about like, oh, what can I do using that we have, a
yeah.
resources that we have.
And another big part of it is not to end with further with continuing ed and further education, but there's a lot of anxiety in today's world with COVID and everything like that. Is leisure and recreation. So today, Stevie and I, we completed a 5K run, and we found out that Stevie has a love of running as well. your child might, whether it's swimming or cycling or hiking or reading,
Nurture
finding out, because that
they're
will
good at what they're good
what
at.
they're good at,
Yeah.
and that might become the greatest gift in this world is you have a hobby and you get paid for it, right? That longevity and that, then you become a happy person. The work is, it's not work anymore. You're not going to work, you're going to hobby, right?
Basically,
And you're
they're
getting paid for it.
finding out their learning style and their strengths helps you to nurture and to help them to transition to adulthood better, right? Basically,
Right.
it will like find, for example, if their child is musically gifted or music are their interest, you can actually teach what their well, their deficit, or what they need, what they're challenging,
Yeah.
what they
but
struggle with,
but
right?
find out, like, again, speak to people, like, don't keep it a secret about your child's interest in that, because networking is extremely important. It was Stevie's teacher that got the family into life lessons, and I mean it's oh yeah.
Well, give your child as much opportunity. Just because the child is your child is special need or a child on the spectrum, that doesn't mean they don't learn. I always say, there's one thing I always say: my child will learn anything if given an opportunity or find a way to teach it. Well, you might not learn the way that you're teaching, but he will like I'm telling you, when we were in Addis, a music teacher didn't want to they didn't want Stevie on the music program at all, right? We fought hard to have him in the music program, because don't say no to
Well,
just because the teacher say no.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
and I mean, through the IEP, if the document is created something, it could have a different terminology. And if your child has an affiliation with language, because students under the spectrum are taken out of specific classes, and just be very careful with the administration if they take them out of, say, a gym class, right? Or
Yeah.
they take them out of a French class. And this is what happened with us.
Yeah.
There was no consultation
Yeah.
given with us. And we were like, well, hold on. So who made this decision? Well, we want social skills is important, but we're going to take away French. Well, no, we feel that it's okay for him to take away,
Yeah.
say, gym class, because he was getting exercise out of class, say, with me. So just make sure that any of the
Advocate.
that any of the decisions made by the school is in conjunction with you.
You know what? The again, to come back and how musically, like Stevie loves music, and they feel that he can't be in the regular class or whatever with the music program. They took him out. So we fought hard to keep it. Like I said, I went to the teacher and he said, like, no, you have no right. First of all, you have to help him to achieve that, right? You have to give him support so that he can be part of it, right? They do that all the time. Their easy way for them is like to isolate these kids. But you, the parent, the advocate. I mean, even if the school said, oh my God, just this parent, you don't care. You're fighting for your kid. So the kid, have them involved in as much you know
Well,
whatever
yeah,
program that you can,
and
right?
much respect to Otto Bereket in terms of his leadership and what you're doing, Bereket, in Ethiopia, and that.
Yeah, it's not easy.
It's not easy, and it echoes kind of what we did. If something is not out there, create a support group, right?
Great,
Yeah,
yeah.
create, and with that, you for us, we're talking anxiety with the child. I mean, we were for the 8 years not always getting support for
None.
Stevie at his regular school. So there, I mean, he was, but so we created the Ethiopian Autism Support Group for parents, right?
Yeah, when we were
And
there,
and
yeah.
so real, like, it not only did it benefit Stevie. And it came about that we were able to use our school, and I think at times at one point, you remember we were using a local school as well. So if you don't ask, you won't get, right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying with that is that choosing the if the right program is not there for your child, try to create or find out where that program, whether it's a
Exactly.
24-hour program, once a week program.
Yeah, advocacy. Thank you, Barakat. Yeah, advocacy. It's so important. People, especially in Ethiopia, people they don't think they have rights, right? And you basically question the teachers who are if the child's goal is not met. So you're working a goal at home, and if they're not really working with you at school, you have a right to ask, right? Because
Well, yeah, and knowing the
I see
time,
this.
yeah, and knowing the timeline on it, right? Not to rush, but there needs to be, like at any meeting, even Yelem and I had a meeting with the, what do they call it? The advocate for Stevie, the person on Friday,
Right.
right? And you can tell that she was
The
taking,
advocacy group, yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
advocacy group, and she was taking down notes and repeating the notes back to us. I mean, feel free to jot down your own notes, but there needs to be a paper trail of this, or at least emails.
I'll give you an example. Recently, that happened to me. As Steve is transitioning, what is a really advocating for your child means? Stevie is supposed to, when your child transition, there's fund that the government gives you and stuff, but it's really endless pages. It's about like 10 pages. Doctor have to sign it, whatever. A psychologist have to sign it, but the school refused to sign it. Basically, I called many repeatedly, and they said that they're like the psychologist who did the assessment. She doesn't want to sign it. You know what I did? I didn't stop that. I went to the board, the main board, and I said I advocate for Stevie. No, this is you have the paper, you have the the assessment in your hand, so you have to sign it. I went to all the way to the big board, and the board actually contacted the school, and the school representative contacted me, and he said he apologized. But why didn't you do
Well,
it before? But you have to advocate.
well, a
Yeah.
transition is a part of life in schools. I mean, Stevie had many teachers, and what one great teacher, and I've told this to Lamb, it's ebbs and flows. So building the resiliency of your child to deal with different personalities. So really, for a counselor, a psychologist, or social worker who on paper it said that child X, right, Stevie will receive social work support or occupational therapy support, and that's on there and it's written down, and there's a timeline by April 2022, or sorry, December 2022, and if there has nothing been taken, nothing has been on that, then you get on it,
Yeah.
right?
So really to recap what we're talking about, again, transition to adulthood, teach skills that they life skill, small skill, all the skills that they need to function as a human being, right? Well, whether it's at home, outside, there's like here transition training, taking transportation. That's part of the a lot of skills that you need to teach, right? But don't panic and gradually teach, divide or write them down, all of the skills that you need to teach throughout until the child, 16, before the child turns 16. But make sure that you do it divided, prioritize what you need to teach first. And also make sure that you go through the finances. The other thing we didn't talk about is like, who's going to be your U team when the transition happen? I really want to focus on here for Ethiopia, because here there's a team of experts and stuff. But in Ethiopia, you can create actually, if you have a good school and the school is really, they wouldn't be part of it. They should be part of it as a team, right? The school has to be part of it, and families, close families that really care for that child, who should be part of it. You set up a team to be part of it for the future. Okay, who's going to look after something happened to you guys? Who's going to look after? That's important. That's part of transition. We're going through that. I and all that stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just looking at like, okay, so there's the core courses, subject areas, math, literacy, and numeracy, and that. For students under the spectrum, at least on the IEP, the paperwork here, it's called an alternative program. And I'm just looking at one, I won't name the child, but it is transitions. Here you go, right? And it's called an annual program goal, and it's itemized. Student X will successfully transition from a preferred activity, especially free time, back into the classroom 50% of the time, right? So it's itemizing, it's setting that goal. That is a specific goal with a number on it, and then it's looking at what are the learning expectations. The student might choose a model or a peer to model on task behavior, right? So it's knowing specifically what the learning expectations, what are the strategies for the teacher, right?
At
What
home too, right?
at home, yeah. So, and this is all brought out at meetings and that, right? Positive reinforcement, incentives, encouragement, and praise, ongoing communication with the parent. And then what are the methods? How is the assessment? How are they getting this data? Observation, checklist, conference with the student. Very important to talk to the student, right? Rewards, and then there is the ABC log, right? Antecedent,
And
behavior,
yeah,
and
you can
consequence.
actually do that the ABC chart at home as well. But
Right.
the main point is you uh, you a parent that who are actually doing the transition in Ethiopia, right? Like I say here, there's a lot of advocacy group. There's a lot of team to help you transition your child. They go through everything, right? What can the child do after 60? What happens when Stevie now graduating next year? He's not going to school, so they're looking for a program for him. What does it look like? It looks like a place where he can actually foster in terms of his independence, more skills he can learn based on his strengths and his interest. Like we're choosing like program like music or more media type things because that's what he's interested in. And really, also we're focusing on finding a place for him, challenges that he have, so he can actually be more independent, right? So you work on all these things. Look at, like I said, if your child is young, you still you. I would focus, teaching the skills now,
Yeah.
really.
But
So
the programs that your child is in post-secondary, right? So they're in a work-placed program, computer, volunteer.
yeah,
Read your child's body language. Ask them how it's going. Speaking to other families in that. What you see on print, I mean, let's face it. People, the organizations, they may get funding. They get funding in terms of numbers, but don't always. I mean, I'm not sounding skeptical here, but seeing is believing. What's on print, it has to suit your child's needs in that. So talking to and this is talking to other parents about different programs, and that's why, I mean, for us, getting back to that support group, if one doesn't exist, and we feel as though we have a support group here, right?
yeah, we create a
Yeah,
support
yeah,
group. Yeah,
exactly. But finding out, because there is, you don't know what's out there, and just sitting with other parents, knowing that, oh, it's okay to feel that way.
you know what? Something.
They get it, because when you go out with family and that, their kids are, oh, Stevie's cousin, he's driving. Stevie isn't. What's the problem,
You know
right?
what?
Or he's dating. Stevie isn't at the problem. What's the problem? So it's just, yeah.
Remember, we met this mom in Ethiopia. She have two kids, right? I always remember her. Like she had her two kids, both non-verbal. One is a little bit verbal, but both non-verbal. It's the mother is desperate, right? She had them both, and I'm not gonna name names, but into a program that in fact they're worse. That's why I'm saying placement is very, very important. Just because the child is under the spectrum, they don't have to be in everybody's together.
Yeah.
So they had her two kids into program. She's paying a lot of money, but they're not getting. They in fact becoming more behavior in terms of they have meltdowns and behavior,
Well,
right?
and your child may pick up on the negative behaviors in
That's
that,
what happened.
right?
So when she came to our group that we had in Ethiopia, we helped her having there was a girl who was actually doing a home AB. I don't know if she's still doing it in Ethiopia, and we hook her up, right? And she set up a home program. You can set up ABA at home, right? And there are some courses also you can take online from Ethiopia. So she helped her, and I forgot all about her, to be honest with you. A year later, we met another place, and she told me, she thanked me. She basically said she took them out from the school that they were in. She had set up a home ABA program for them, like somehow in Ethiopia, and she was the kids were so successful. She even have taken them to school, not to school, to church and everything. So it's very important. The kids have to be placed in the right, the placement is important. That's what I'm trying to say, in order for them to transition to adulthood successfully, right? Make sure if it's not the right fit, don't make sure you advocate. You ask, right? You have a right. Don't just wait for oh my God, I don't want to say our culture. I don't want to say this. I don't want her, but no, you have the right. And if you're not happy, definitely advocate for your kids. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very, very important. So to wrap up, I mean, we
And
hope.
questions, ask if the people have
Oh,
questions or
yeah,
comment.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Uh, are there any questions or
Is there
comments?
any question or comment? We'll give 5 minutes for to wrap up. I know we didn't cover everything in terms of transition. It's we will
Well,
definitely
and
come back to it.
nor can we, and nor should we. I
Yeah,
mean,
but we'll
it's very.
definitely share resources that whoever wants it, if you can just contact me, and we'll send you by email the copy of the blank copy of IEP that you can create in Ethiopia. Yeah. So anybody have questions, please
Right.
let us know.
Yeah, and it's work in progress, and I think it's really important.
I see this.
It's really important to celebrate the successes and to find out what's out
I just
there.
want to, okay, to recap this, I really want to say what you need to work on in terms of transition to adulthood. Build your child's strengths that we talked about, really finding out what the child needs, what the child's strengths are, finding out their learning style, and initiate transition planning process early. Before the child to 16. So that covers into
Well,
having a bank account and meetings, setting up a team, and
and
all that.
and through that is determining areas of growth, right?
Right.
And setting a timeline on that.
Engage your child, their family, friends, the school professional staff, and representatives from adult services. Maybe that basically have a team set up for to help your child transition better, program process better. So have not only do this by yourself, have other people involved, and um, well, this is very important. Prepare for the changes and available support and legal protection. That is important. Like a lot of parents, including us, we don't want to deal with the legal who is gonna help in terms of something happen. Work on it really early. There's what they call a Hansen trust here, but in Ethiopia you have to do this by yourself. That's why it's important having other family members to help you. What is the future like if something happened to me? Work on it early. Who's gonna look after your child? Who is gonna be who advocate for your child? Right? That is
Well, and
important.
then knowing who the child feels comfortable with, right? I
Yes.
mean, that's important as well.
Yeah, and this one is centered transition plan around the interests and strengths of your child.
Yeah,
That's why we're working on. We did with Stevie. We center our. He basically on his interest, what he likes to do, right? Each child have his interest and strength. Work on that because that helps in transition, finding out is really what the child wants to do, right? And um, well, this is very, very important. Make sure you teach your child to advocate for themselves, right? Self-esteem, because our kids lack that, and
Yeah, well, and this would happen, as I was saying, not to compare your child to, it's not easy, to other mainstream students or family members, cousins in our situation, or
Mm,
a sibling in that,
mm.
because every child learns differently, and knowing their learning like style
Right,
that
learning
we talk.
style, finding out the strengths. This is all that helps you to transition your child. But this the setting, setting goal and teaching them problem solving skills. How you can't always build them out. You have to teach them how they can advocate for themselves, right? When if something happens, because our kids, they get bullied easily. They don't know how to advocate for themselves. It's not something as a parent you need to
Hmm.
teach
Okay.
as an important skill. This part is also good. Prepare your child to navigate higher education. Employ independent living is important. We covered it.
Right.
But furthermore, like right now,
Right.
there's all these courses you can teach, computer courses,
Okay.
health and fitness, and all
Yeah,
that
well, we
stuff.
talked about, yeah.
Music and
So
art,
so the
yeah.
leisure activities, and what is out there, and I mean, celebrating the successes, but even taking them, finding out, the rewards, incentives, taking them for ice cream, or
Yeah,
where
start early.
yeah.
Yeah.
So start early.
Start early teaching all these
Uh,
skills and finding out their learning style and work on the transition process
right.
with a team of people
Right.
that you think child center. Yeah.
Very child centered.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so yeah, this has been very successful, and
thank you everybody.
thank you, and thank you for continuing to not only support us, but most notably supporting DJ Stevie and his YouTube channel.
We'll try to have this in Amarina when another time. I will maybe it's a taped record on on the channel next week. I'll post it so Amharic speakers can access it too. So I'll do that. So if you have anybody have any question,
Well, yeah. So thank you for whether Rosina, Autobeticat,
anybody
and
who's
anyone
tuning,
else who is viewing afterwards. You're becoming the village that is helping our son Stevie, and if we can become the village to help your child,
don't give
please,
up to your child.
please
Yeah,
let us know.
and success. Celebrate every success, every achievement. It's a milestone. So definitely celebrate like because for small things if they that is important. So don't give up. Yeah.
Don't give up,
All
right? And
right.
success, France.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, guys.
And England looks like
Yeah.
England 3-0 now.
Thank you for tuning in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amasa ganalo. Ciao.
Yeah. What do you think?